Hey everyone, welcome to the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan with Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. Reuben, how you doing?
Doing well. Day after Christmas, no construction on 95, no traffic on 95, no accidents on 95. Made it down here in record time.
That's a good thing. Hope everyone had a great Christmas. Hope you enjoyed watching some football. Not very competitive football, but there was football on TV.
And a Sixers game.
And a Sixers game. Good Sixers game.
Big win.
Yeah.
Big win.
Did you watch football?
I did.
I will give Netflix credit. It looked good.
Yeah, it did.
It looked good. It was crisp. I thought they did a good job of production. I kind of hate that everything is on. Like, you need Netflix and Amazon and all that. Like, I feel bad for people, but they did a good job with it. And after, I know you probably didn't watch the Tyson fight last month or whenever it was, but it was so bad, like buffering and everything.
Oh, really?
I was worried about football. I know everyone was worried about these football games.
Well, it looked good. And I mean, you know me, I'll watch any football game, but I did when it was Sixers time and that game was out of control. Got to go Sixers.
There you go. We have a lot to talk about today. We'll get into the quarterback situation a little bit. We'll give you everything we know as we record this on Thursday morning. Unfortunately, we're at a little bit of an information deficit as we record this podcast. We'll get you ready for Eagles-Cowboys matchups in this game, and we have a bunch of questions to get to at the end. Let's kind of lay out what we know about the quarterback situation. The Eagles were not even in the building on Wednesday, Christmas Day. They had a player's day off.
Guys were in for treatment in the afternoon. That was it. Yeah.
But no official team meetings or practice. So an estimated injury report comes out. They actually held a walkthrough on Tuesday. But Wednesday, they have nothing. The estimated injury report comes out. Jalen Hurts did not participate. Not unexpected there. He's in the concussion protocol. Typically, that's the way things go. I've gotten a lot of questions about, every concussion is different. But if you're looking for a reference, last week, Sidney Brown was a DNP on Wednesday, limited Thursday, full Friday, played Sunday. So
that's the best case scenario.
That's the best case. So we'll have to monitor Hurts the next couple of days. We'll learn a lot this afternoon, actually, when we get out there for practice about his status and whether or not there's a chance he could play on Sunday.
Yeah, you're right. Every concussion is different. There's no pattern. You can't look for a pattern or try to figure it out. It's just when you clear each phase of the protocol and move forward. It's not easy to do it in 1 week, but like you said, with Sidney and other guys, it can be done. It's just how he responds, and well, obviously it's going to come down to the wire. I mean, I would guess we won't know anything till Friday. Possibly Saturday, but I think you have till Saturday morning to get a guy clear. So we'll see. My gut feeling is we're going to see Kenny Pickett out there Sunday against the Cowboys, but not ruling out Jalen.
Yeah, let's talk about Pickett because he was listed as limited on the estimated report with a ribs injury. He got banged up in that game. So, look, even if he plays, it's something to keep in the back of your mind that he's not going to be at 100%.
Yeah, he looked like he was in a lot of pain there. He was doubled over at one point. I guess it was on that play that he had that flip pass, got hit pretty good. Yeah, and he's already a guy that's, in a new offense and hasn't played a whole lot lately, and it's just another thing to be concerned about. And the Cowboys defense is certainly physical and aggressive, and he's going to get hit. So it's not an ideal situation.
Yeah, and we'll see how he kind of progresses through the week. After the game on Sunday, he said he didn't expect it to prevent him from playing in this week's game. So, but there's also some adrenaline flowing right after a football game where you might not feel the pain of it all. But hopefully we talk to Kenny very soon, and we'll learn a little bit more about the quarterback situation. Other stuff from the injury report, a bunch of rest designations, which is funny. They put it on an estimated injury report when they're not practicing, but I guess they're trying to be as truthful as possible. So Saquon Barkley, Mekhi Becton, A.J. Brown, Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, Darius Slay, and Josh Sweat, all rest designations. The non-rest designations, Nakobe Dean was listed as a DNP with an abdomen injury, and Will Shipley with his concussion that he got on the one kickoff.
Yeah, and I'd have to go back and check, but I don't think they've had a full day off like this previous Christmases under Nick. Maybe it seems to me they would practice early in the morning, and we wouldn't be down there, but they'd have an early practice, and then he'd get them out of there for the rest of the day. But I think one thing Nick is really good about is knowing what his team needs as far as practice and, light, heavy, lifting. He has a pretty good sense of what they need, and he talks to the players about their thinking. So with the bye week so far in the rearview mirror, maybe having this this Wednesday off isn't the worst thing.
And they were able to get a walkthrough in on Tuesday, and they would have done a walkthrough on Wednesday. So they just did it a day earlier.
So they're not getting any less work.
Yeah. I think that's just what they did this week. Let's talk about Kenny Pickett a little bit. I think opinions really varied on the way he played Sunday. And I think that when you look at his performance, you kind of have to look at it through the scope of he's a backup quarterback coming in cold without the game plan being for him.
And without getting any reps. I'm not really aware of what other people were saying. I think he was okay. I think it's probably unrealistic to expect him to be a whole lot better than he was. I would expect to see progress on Sunday, or else I'd be really concerned because he'll get the reps. I mean, we know he'll get at least, if he's going to play, he's going to get the reps. So
he wasn't good.
He wasn't good.
He wasn't good. It was, it wasn't good, but also the expectations have to be tempered in that situation.
Yeah. And he did some good things. He did some bad things. That's what you would expect. I mean, he didn't have a great training camp. So my confidence level in him going in just wasn't super high. And I think he played a little bit better than training camp would have indicated. He wasn't a disaster. It wasn't a complete disaster.
By the end of training camp, he started to pick it up a little bit. He looked like a guy who just took a long time to get this offense.
Yeah.
And it was shocking because Tanner McKee seemed to get it quicker.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like the ribs aren't going to keep Kenny out of the game. And we talked about this on Tuesday. I wouldn't mind seeing Kenny Pickett out there. Tanner McKee out there. Yeah. You did that last week. I did that today. It would be fun to see him. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. We don't really get to see him much after training camp's over, but he's just got something. There's something there. You can tell.
Yeah. And it was a discussion we had in the offseason, going into the offseason. Is he ready to be the backup? And maybe if this team was in a different situation, he would be. I think that's probably the case. If they didn't have a roster they thought could compete for a Super Bowl this year, I think they probably just stick with him as the backup. But I understand wanting a veteran. Yeah. Someone who's had starts under their belt.
Yeah. And had some success.
Some.
Some.
I wonder how we haven't talked to Kenny. We talked to him after the game, but that's about game specific stuff. But I wonder how he's taken to the backup role, because he was drafted as a first round pick, was the starter in Pittsburgh until he gets benched. So, but being just knowing your role as the backup, how's he handled that?
Yeah, it's not easy for some guys. Mm-hmm. It's a good question for him. He was a first round pick just a couple of years ago. And I remember one night I looked this up, there's never been, 14-10 in 24 starts with the Steelers. There's never been a first round quarterback traded with a winning record that quickly after 2 years. It's never happened before. Things have changed. If you don't have immediate success as a first round quarterback, they're just going to draft someone else and move on. And we've seen that in a few places in the last few years. That never used to be the case. I mean, you would get 5 years. It's just not that, teams aren't that patient anymore. But I would expect with him getting reps during the week, which he didn't get last week, and maybe a little more, thrown to Devontae and AJ, I would expect him to be more efficient. I would expect Kellen to understand how to get him to a rhythm earlier and better, which he didn't do. That's partly on Kenny, partly on Kellen. And I think he's going to have to be better to win this game.
I agree with that. I think the one thing that concerned me a little bit in that game was that they seemed so tentative to let him run the offense and throw the ball. It's a second and long and you're running with Saquon with a loaded box. They didn't show a ton of confidence in him.
You're right.
And maybe that's just the product of the game plan not being tailored to him. But that was the concerning thing for me in that game is if he's here, you traded for this guy, you wanted a veteran in this role, Tanner McKee could have handed the ball off.
Yeah.
You have this guy here that you traded, you gave up assets to get. You have to trust him a little bit.
Yeah, especially against a stacked box. I mean, those are throws a first round pick should be able to make. An undrafted rookie should be able to make against.
Yeah. I think with Kenny, they were beyond the first round pick stuff.
Yeah, that's probably true. But I mean,
and he was a first round pick because that might have been the worst quarterback draft ever.
Okay, well, forget the first round pick. If he's your backup, you got to trust him. It's that simple. And when the defense is loading the box, they're daring you to throw. They're saying, beat us throwing. And Kellen Moore's like, we're not going to try to do that. We're going to send Saquon into a wall here for the entire second half. And
Saquon probably like, I feel like I'm back with the Giants.
That's what it was
Where are
like.
these holes?
Yeah. He still finished with 150. I guess he had
109 in the first quarter.
Yeah. He had 41 the rest of the game. Math.
I am looking at this 2022 draft.
What do you got?
And Kenny Pickett at 20th. The next quarterback, you know who the next quarterback was?
Who was it?
The next quarterback was 74th overall, Desmond Ridder.
Wow.
Then Malik Willis at 86. So you didn't have any quarterbacks in the second round. You had, and then Matt Corral at 94. I mean, this is just Bailey Zappi in the fourth round.
That went well.
Sam Howell, the first pick in the fifth round.
Wow.
I mean, it's just like all time.
Tanner McKee down there somewhere. That was next year, right?
Yeah, next year. The best quarterback in this draft was Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant.
Seventh round.
Yeah, seventh round, 262 overall. But just a brutal quarterback draft.
Yeah, it is bad. I still think Bailey Zappi's got a bright future, though.
Okay. Sam Howell had some fun games with Washington.
Yeah.
Not looking great for him now.
No.
What do you think is a realistic expectation if Kenny Pickett has to play on Sunday?
Statistically or just narratively?
Narratively. Yeah. I mean, statistically, I don't know if that'll tell the full story.
Well, I mean, Dallas is a team that forces a ton of turnovers, strip sacks, interceptions. Their corners are physical and aggressive. I would say one or fewer turnover and put up 20, at least 27 points.
Okay. How about just from the eye test? Do you think
you just want to see him get into a rhythm?
Yeah, you want to see him move the ball. Get into a rhythm, move the ball. That can be run and pass, right? I think he's not obviously Jalen Hurts in the run game, but if you're going to have some zone read stuff in there, you better keep the defense honest here and there.
Yeah.
You have to be careful with that. You don't want to get hurt, but I think you have to keep the defense honest. I just want to see him move the ball a little bit.
I'd like to see him throw it away when he's under pressure, have a better sense of the pocket. But that, you don't expect that to come really quickly.
Yeah, there was the one third down sack. It was bad. It was just on him.
Yeah.
You have more rushers than you have linemen. Like, that's just on a quarterback. That's a veteran quarterback. You got to know to get rid of the ball.
Sure. Yeah. So I'd like to see that.
And it wasn't even like from the blind side. He's seeing the rusher come out.
Yeah, he was.
That's on you.
Yeah. So I'd like to see him clean that up. And we'll see. I mean, this team's had, going back to, the 80s, this team's had really good luck with backups. I guess going back to Rodney Peete in 95, and that was the 90s. It wasn't the 80s, but
are you sure 95 was in the 90s?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah. I looked it up during the break.
Thanks.
But yeah, obviously Nick and Jeff Garcia. I mean, they've always had AJ Feely in 2001.
Coy, all right.
Coy won a couple games here and there.
It was fun.
It's funny, if you look up most wins by a quarterback on StatHead, you'll get like Randall, Jaws, Donovan, and Coy, because Coy played in all those games as the holder. So he gets credit for a win as a non-starter. But anyway, yeah. So but I think a big part of Kenny's success is going to be Kellen, and like you said, trusting him and giving him plays that, stay aggressive and don't rely too heavily on the run if it's not going well. And he's got to show some faith in his quarterback.
Yeah, Kellen Moore got into the game plan aspect of it a little bit more than Nick Sirianni did when Kellen spoke on Tuesday. basically it's not like two completely different game plans for Jalen or for Kenny, but it does get tailored to the one quarterback. There's going to be some carryover. I think a lot of the run game stuff, right or wrong, because a lot of that's like zone read and RPO, but that gets carried over too. All the normal runs get carried over. But then I think you tailor the passing game to the individual quarterback a little bit more. And I think there's probably a feeling out process for the play caller. And like he's gotten, like Kellen Moore at this point probably has a decent idea of what Jalen Hurts wants. He probably doesn't have that with Kenny Pickett. And you're not going to like magically get that in a few days. And also AJ Brown talked about it after the game. Like he's played with Jalen now for a long time. Him and Devontae are really used to Jalen. So they just haven't gotten a lot of time with Kenny Pickett. So I'd imagine this week in practice and probably after practice, I'd assume those guys are getting some reps in, before or after, just like, hey, this is what I want on this route. This is what I expect on this route. And you kind of go through it like that because like they just haven't had that time together.
Yeah. Yeah. That's going to be huge. And just the way the ball comes out of different quarterbacks' hands. And I'm not making excuses for Devontae, but on the ball he dropped, that could have been a factor. The ball's coming at you different. It's got a different spin, a different velocity.
Yeah. I don't think that was a factor.
I don't either, but
okay.
But I think it is an adjustment, kind of getting used to, the way the ball comes off. I got, and they don't get reps with them, like even in training camp. Jalen has a rest day or something.
Yep. All right, want to move on from the quarterbacks a little bit?
Let's do that.
Pro Bowl, and some people like roll their eyes when we talk Pro Bowl because it's not about the actual Pro Bowl games.
It's not even a game anymore.
It's not a game. It's Pro Bowl games. It's like skill competitions. But if you're a Pro Bowler, look, it does mean something. Maybe it shouldn't, but it definitely does. It's recognition. Some guys get money based on it. Like there are Pro Bowl incentives. Sometimes there's a Pro Bowl escalator, which is more than an incentive because you get it like added to each base salary on your contract. And then right or wrong, players are judged at the end of their careers by how many Pro Bowls, all pros, all these accolades that they end up compiling. So I understand that it's like the actual game doesn't matter. The recognition does. So
yeah. And if you don't think it does, walk around that locker room and ask guys if they care about making the Pro Bowl. Mm-hmm. It's big for them.
Yeah. It's not as important as all pro, which is, a little tougher to get, but it does mean something. And I love, by the way, that the NFLPA started doing like the player voting all pro. I think, the more of that, the better.
Yeah.
Now the Pro Bowl voting is a third from fans, a third from players, a third from coaches. Fan voting is over. Now on Friday, the players and coaches get to cast their votes.
Yeah. And so what happens is like defensive players vote for the players they go against. So corners are voting for only in their conference. So, so Slay and Quignon are voting for wide receivers in the NFC and vice versa.
Which honestly, like it sounds like it's perfect system, but like, I don't know, the Eagles haven't played the Vikings and the Vikings have Justin Jefferson. You know what I mean? Like, so like it's not a perfect system. And it's funny because you would think that NFL players know everything that's going on in the league.
They don't. They're
so hyper-focused on the game they play that week. It's like they're watching their opponents.
Yeah, and there'll be players who ask us, like, hey, who's the best, linebacker or whatever. So it's a popularity contest to an extent. I mean, it just is. It's impossible to take that out of it. So a lot of guys are going to vote for their friends and kind of waters down the voting. But I think, for the most part, the right players generally get in, not always.
Yeah. So let's go. We've done this a little bit before, but now that we're kind of here, let's go through the players who possibly have a chance to be a Pro Bowler. You want to start offense or defense?
Let's start offense.
Okay.
Other than Saquon, I think it'd be interesting what happens at tackle. Like for all pro, you vote for right and left tackle. For the Pro Bowl, it's just O tackles. Mm-hmm. So Jordan Mailata's never made one. He deserves it.
He deserves it. I think Lane does too.
I do too.
Now there are other good tackles in the conference. Penei Sewell is probably still going to be the all-pro
probably
at right tackle. That's going to be tough for Lane to get back once you lose it. But there are other good tackles. I just think Mailata and Lane Johnson deserve it. It's just like, how is it going to go? Now, the Eagles having a good team helps for a position like that. Having a running back like Saquon doing what he's doing, I think, does help.
Yeah, they're a top 5 offense. I mean, they both deserve it. Who do you think is more likely to be a Pro Bowler, Lane? Just because he's
probably Lane.
He's gotten 5.
He's done it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think Jordan might be a little more deserving this year, but it's very close.
Jordan also missed time.
He did.
So like that hurts.
Yeah. Lane missed what, 1 game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jordan missed the 4.
He missed the 4 on IR. I think he still deserves it. He's been that good.
Mm-hmm. Who else on offense do you think has a shot?
I think AJ has a shot. There'll be 4 NFC wide receivers. So you figure what, Jefferson, CD, I don't know, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Yeah, I mean, the Rams guys really they've been hurt, but those 3 are probably locks, right?
Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at this was from Tom Pelissero. This was the fan voting for tackle, like overall in the league. Sewell and Taylor Decker, both lines were 1, 2, 3, 4 were Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata.
Yeah.
You also have Tristan Wirfs in the NFC. You have Trent Williams, who's been around a long time. Zach Tom with the Packers rounded out the tackle list.
I think AJ's going to make it despite missing the 3 games. I mean, he's averaging almost 90 yards a game, which I believe is second in the NFC to Jefferson.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at AJ Brown was 8th in player voting, or fan voting rather. So you had the NFC players above him were Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb. So you have some good players up there.
Yeah, it might come down to McLaurin or AJ because I think CD and Jefferson and Amon-Ra St. Brown are locks.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And just the fact that we're talking about AJ after missing 3 games, his numbers are great.
Yeah.
And on like a per game, per snap, per target basis, he's been incredible.
Yeah. I mean, he's number 1 in the league in yards per target by far, by over a yard per target, which is crazy. Who would you vote for, McLaurin or AJ?
It's tough. I think AJ is a better player.
Yeah.
I think he's so dynamic, but McLaurin's been great. And he finally finally as a quarterback, you feel like happy for him in a way.
Yeah,
he's been playing with some pretty bad quarterbacks. So if it comes down to those 2, I think it might go to McLaurin.
Yeah.
But AJ is certainly in the mix, which is impressive after missing time.
Yeah, no doubt.
Now a guard, I think Landon Dickerson is going to probably make it. It's funny, the top 2, the Lions are really stuffing the fan voting ballot box. They're happy to have a good team. Kevin Zeitler and Graham Glasgow 1, 2, but Landon Dickerson was 3rd in fan voting, and Mekhi Becton was 7th.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's been really good. Landon's at the point now, I mean, he's a young player who's got that reputation, who's made it the last 2 years, and he's played well. And as long as he plays well, he's going to keep making them. I mean, he's going to make a lot of.
How mad do you think he is every time he gets named to a Pro Bowl?
Oh, he hates it. Maybe deep down he likes it. I don't know.
I think deep down he probably likes it.
I'd like to know. But, he's got, I mean, gosh, I have to look up how many Eagles have made 3 in their first 4 years. Reggie.
Mm-hmm. And as a guard, when you start doing that, it's going to be tough to take it away from you.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, if he keeps playing well and stays healthy, he's going to keep going.
Anyone else on offense?
I think Jalen has a shot.
Sure. I'm looking at
I mean, it's going to be what, Goff and I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but
Jaden. So in terms of NFC fan voting, Jaden Daniels, Goff, and Baker Mayfield were ahead of Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Darnold has a case too.
Yeah.
I think he's in the mix though.
Yeah, he is.
And he has the notoriety.
Yeah.
Do you think Kari Blasingame has done enough?
No doubt. His 1 snap on Sunday was really impressive.
It was a good block.
It was a good block.
I'm a little disappointed. He was elevated for 3 games and never even utilized the fullback package.
It's devastating.
I was trying to get him to the Pro Bowl.
I actually have to vote for an all-pro fullback, which is kind of
they still do
anachronistic.
Well, there are some. There's still some out there.
There's a few.
I'm seeing if they have it even on the. They do. So Juszczyk is one because he's the only.
He's the only real one that
people
used.
know. Alec Ingold from the Dolphins is pretty good. CJ Ham from the Vikings. These are some of the names that Blasting Game, like he said, there's like a fullback community because there's not many of them. He keeps in touch with all these guys. He actually played under CJ Ham with the Vikings for a while.
Interesting.
Yeah. Came into the league with the Vikings.
It's a lot of fullback talent in one room.
Probably a lot of fullback chatter. We should probably move on. Let's go to the defense.
You get me talking about Anthony Toney again.
I think the clear lock is Zach Bond, right?
Yeah.
If Saquon's the clear lock on offense, the clear lock on defense, it has to be Zach Bond.
Yeah, where's he in fan voting? Is he still number one?
As soon as I find it.
Because a guy like that normally...
Yeah, he was number one. It's crazy. Ahead of Roquan Smith, Zaire Franklin, and Bobby Wagner.
Wow. That's wild, really. Because here's a guy...
But he's playing better than all them.
He is.
He's an all-pro to me.
He's on my ballot.
Yeah.
Which I just started. It's crazy because usually a guy, he's never been a starter. He's never played the position. He's with a new team. He has no reputation. He's never played on a great team. There's nothing, but usually with a guy like that, it just takes a few years.
The thing that's different with him is it's not like he's making the plays he's supposed to make. He's making incredible plays.
Yeah.
Like he's making game-changing plays week in and week out. That gets you noticed.
And he's had big games on national TV, which is huge.
Yeah. That's
really huge. And that'll get you a lot of honors.
Who do you think is the next most likely
on defense? That's a great question. I'd say Jalen Carter.
Yeah, I think it's Jalen Carter.
I think he's gotten a lot of pub. Certainly a lot of Georgia guys who are going to vote for him on offense. Yeah, I think Sweat's got a shot, but I think Jalen Carter is almost as much of a lock.
Now, he'll have some ground to make up. He was 8th. And this is the whole league for defensive tackles. The NFC guys ahead of him were Vita Vea, Leonard Williams, Braden Fisk ahead of him, and Dexter Lawrence was ahead of him. Now, Lawrence ended up getting hurt and missing a lot of the year, so I don't know if he'll end up making it. And even if he does, he probably won't go.
Well, it's not like it used to be. You can go and just...
I guess, but he might not even go. I don't know. Yeah.
And plus, it's not even in Hawaii, so it's in Orlando this year, right?
Yeah.
Well, now there's like no reason to go.
Josh Sweat, 7th among defensive ends.
Where's he among NFC guys?
He's behind just Nick Bosa. He was ahead of Micah Parsons, which is crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. I think he's got a shot.
He's had a nice season.
What's he up to, 8?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. After that,
you know what the kind of crazy thing is? I'm looking at the fan voting for corner. Cooper DeJean is 9th. Quinyon Mitchell not on here.
Interesting. That's fans just going by stats.
I guess
Cooper doesn't have picks either, but he's probably got more splash plays.
That's probably fair.
It's gonna be tough for Quinyon. And it's a shame because he's played at that level.
Yeah. I mean, it was shocking to see him get beat on Sunday.
It was.
And he thought he was going to jump a route, and then it ended up being a longer play than he expected. I understand why he thought he could jump it. Probably wasn't the right play, but
yeah,
like at least you understand it. It's not like he just got flat out beat. Like he was trying to make a play.
Yeah.
I think you live with that.
I think, the 2 safeties each have 4 interceptions now. I don't know where they are on the fan voting.
Well, this looks like it breaks it up between strong safety and free safety. Is that right?
Really? That's kind of antiquated.
Yeah. Oh, I can't even find the free safety one now. Oh, here's free safety. Reed, Blankenship, they have listed 3rd. But the problem is the top 2 guys are also from the NFC, Xavier McKinney and Kirby Joseph.
Kirby Joseph's been really good. I think it's going to be tough for Reed, but undrafted guy, doesn't have, Middle Tennessee State, doesn't have the reputation, but he's played really well. I think he's
played well. He's kind of been like the steadying force of that defense.
Yeah.
Especially on the back end, because they've had some guys in and out of the lineup. Even like the last touchdown, he kind of put it on himself. I don't think it was, but
yes. Yeah.
He feels that kind of leadership.
Said I should have lined those guys up better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Who do you think's more likely, CJ or Reed?
Reed.
Everybody in the league.
No, players aren't voting for CJ.
They hate CJ.
Yeah. He like the Athletic does that yearly poll of players, and he gets voted most annoying every year.
And he campaigns for it probably.
Oh, he campaigns for it on the field.
He deserves it. But he's played well.
He has played well, and it was very noticeable when he was not out there.
It sure was
on Sunday. Now, look, he also was the closest guy on that first touchdown too.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's been perfect, but he brings something to that defense.
Yeah, and they missed it.
Yeah, they definitely did.
Yeah.
Hoping he talks to us this week.
That'd be nice.
I'd like to get his side of it.
I'm not counting on it.
Me neither. Maybe he'll throw me a late Christmas present, walk in and chat with all of us.
You're his boy, and he's got to take care of you.
Yeah, not working that way. So that's no specialists, right?
I don't know. Braid Mann's had a good week. No specialists.
No specialists.
I think Keely Ringo's been a Pro Bowl level.
He's been good.
Yeah,
he's been good gunner, good vice jammer. I mean, he's done a good job.
Yeah,
but
no,
maybe. I mean, the Eagles are a good team. It normally goes to one of those players who's on a good team. You ever see that clip of Jeremy Reeves finding out?
Oh yeah, that's wonderful.
Oh, it's one of my favorite clips of all time.
Yeah, and
Tress Way finds out like Ron Rivera tells a few of the guys who tells Tress Way, and Tress is like, "I want to be there when you tell him." He's like really excited.
Yeah, and he was with the Eagles in one training camp. Is that right, Jeremy Reeves?
Yeah.
Or was he on the practice squad during the year?
Oh, that's a good question. I remember him being here.
Yeah,
and he was someone who like we all kind of noticed. Like, okay, he's carved out a nice little career for himself. He's 28 now. How old are we? Golly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years with the Commanders.
Is that right?
Yeah. It was 2018. From South Alabama.
Interesting.
For him. Before we take a break, wanted to mention Bill Bergey, Eagles great, died this week. One of the greatest players in franchise history, Eagles Hall of Famer. I know he'd been battling cancer for a while. One of the all-time greats. Yeah,
and just the nicest guy. I did a couple of appearances with Bill, and he's the kind of guy that would stay like, "Hey, Bill, can you come over to for an hour and do this appearance?" And he'd be there 2 hours, signing autographs, taking pictures for everybody. He's one of those guys who it seems like every Eagle fan met him somewhere at some event and just speaks glowingly about him because he treated everybody like his best friend. And it was really cool to see that in person. Just a wonderful guy, settled in Chatsford after he retired, like so many Eagles players, who are not from here, who move here or who stay here after their careers. There's, you see him at training camp, there's tons of them. He discovered he had this jaw cancer 3 years ago, and he battled it. And he spoke in an interview with the Eagles website about how Jim Kelly was a real inspiration for him and was in touch with him, and they talked, and he kind of got him through some really hard times. Wonderful guy. Like you said, incredible player, 27 career interceptions as a linebacker. Not all for the Eagles. I think 18 of them for the Eagles. He started with the Bengals. Mm-hmm. Played on the 80 Super Bowl team and then retired. Wonderful guy, great player. He'll be missed.
Yeah, he will be. All right, let's take a break. We'll get the Eagles-Cowboys matchups on the other side.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
We're way back when the Eagles played the Cowboys and smoked them in North Texas, 34-6. We thought, man, chalk up that next game. That's a W, easy. It's not easy anymore.
No, they've figured some things out. They probably saved McCarthy's job, which, I think maybe he's not as bad as some people think.
They're going to live in purgatory for a while.
But they won 4 of their last 5. I was impressed with the way they played against Tampa after being eliminated. When the Eagles lost, when Washington won, that eliminated the Cowboys from the postseason. They went out and played a really tough game against a good Buccaneers team That was impressive. So they're not going to roll over. Certainly in this rivalry, they're not going to. They've kind of found some things with Cooper Rush, and he's been efficient, hasn't made mistakes, not turning the ball over. Their defense is physical and forces a lot of turnovers. And they're a dangerous team. Eagles haven't swept the Cowboys since 2011. Finally have an opportunity to do it. And it's funny because the rematch is never here. It's always the first game's here and the rematch is down there. Yeah. It's been like 6 years since the second game was here. So they really haven't had a lot of opportunities to sweep because they always lose down there in the first game. So it would be nice to get this thing locked up, get that 2 seed locked up, the division, and not have to worry about, playing your guys against the Giants, most likely. But it's a tough game if Kenny Pickett starts. And nothing, look, I'm not ripping Kenny Pickett, but if Jalen Hurts starts this game, there's no doubt in my mind the Eagles win. If Kenny Pickett starts, there's plenty of doubt.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I think it's a tough game. Either way, I don't think it's going to be super easy. And then if you have your backup quarterback in there who wasn't great last week, I mean, it could be a battle of 2 backups, but one backup has, he's gotten a little bit of momentum going his way right now.
Yeah, and Cooper Rush has been down there. I mean, he was teammates with Kellen Moore. That's how long he's been there. Hasn't played a lot, but I think he's clearly one of the better backups in the league. Yeah.
He was the butt of the joke after the Eagles beat the Cowboys the first time. He was awful in that game. He got benched.
He was historically got benched for he averaged something like under 2 yards pass attempt, which is, I think it was the second lowest ever against the Eagles. But they've got both. He's got a lot of good receivers. He's got both tight ends are playing well. They throw to the bat. The running back has been good, and they throw to him. They throw to, obviously, CeeDee's really been great. And he has got a lot of weapons. He spreads the ball around, and they run it well. And it's a dangerous game.
Yeah, I agree with you. Looking at Cooper Rush, the last 5 games when they're 4-1, 9 touchdowns to 1 interception, passer rating over 100.
Yeah.
And he's just been sacked 6 times.
Yeah.
In those games. So it's not like teams are able to tee off on him.
Yep, that's true. And his passer rating is like just over 100, right? 100.5 or something. Yeah. Now, it's hard to imagine Cooper Rush beating him. But it's going to be a good test for the secondary that got gashed in that fourth quarter.
I mean, last week, the Bucs had an awful lot to play for.
They sure did. Yeah. Now, a game's here, which I think will make a difference. But, yeah, it's a big challenge. I'm really curious to see how this game goes.
Me too.
Yeah.
The next matchup I have is Cooper DeJean versus CeeDee Lamb. Now, CeeDee recently has not been in the slot as much as he was early in the year, but still getting a ton of work inside. I think he'll be like inside, outside a little bit. Wherever he is, you got to make sure you have eyes on him. He's been fantastic.
Yeah, he's been really, really good. And he and Cooper Rush have kind of figured some things out, and kind of like Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. It took them a while to get there. But once they got there, I mean, CeeDee Lamb's he's a beast.
Yeah, you remember how good DeJean was against him in that first matchup, though. He shut him down. CeeDee had 3 targets against DeJean, had 2 catches for 1 yard.
Yeah, and it was similar with Quignon and McLaurin in the first game. Yeah. So that changed.
With one play, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a big play.
One big play. Yeah. So we'll see.
I think he can get some pressure on the quarterback from the edges in this game. You have Terrence Steele, who's played all season at right tackle. He's been okay, but he's given up a ton of pressure. And then the other side, Tyler Guyton, he was hurt. And then last week, I think he was healthy and they benched him, and then he ended up playing in the game. So we'll see who ends up playing left tackle. But either way, I think the Eagles can get some pressure from the edge. Josh Sweat and Nolan Smith have quietly been playing very well.
Yeah, and I was a little disappointed. The Eagles, I mean, I think Washington allowed 8 sacks the week before, allowed 1. Nolan Smith had 1 early. It was a penalty on it, but it was the play still counted. The sack still counted. Yeah, they need to pressure better. And that's why Vic had to blitz so much at the end of the game, because they just weren't.
Yeah, it ended up being, I think, their second highest blitz rate of the season. I think it was 33.3%.
Yeah, it was probably all squeezed into the second half.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've kind of flattened out a little bit as far as pressure. What do they have, 4 sacks in the last 3 games, maybe something like that? I think that's what it is. There was a stretch there kind of in the middle of that winning streak where they were really, getting 4 or 5 a game and really a lot of pressure. They got to get back to that.
I agree with that.
Obviously, they miss BG. They just really do.
They might get Bryce Huff back in this game.
They should, I would think.
Yeah, I would think. It'll be up to the training staff. But he had his biggest play of the year against the Cowboys in that first game, had a strip sack against Cooper Rush.
Yeah, late in the game.
Not that late.
Wasn't it late?
No, because Trey Lance was in the game late.
Yeah, the last drive, too. But, yeah, that might have been his last play. I'll look that up. But, yeah, that would certainly help. Anything would help.
On the other side, I mean, Micah Parsons is playing out of his mind right now, and you got to know where he is on every snap. He'll mostly line up over the right tackle, but he does kind of flip back and forth a little bit at times. They'll even like line him up in weird places. So you just got to keep eyes on him.
Yeah, and he's one guy that, eliminated or not, he's going to go hard all the time. That's just who he is. And he's one of those guys that you just, like, as a football fan, you really appreciate the way he plays and how talented he is. That combination of speed and power and strength and agility and finishing ability. But if you're an Eagles fan, you hate it.
He's only played 11 games this year. Has 9.5 sacks, 19 quarterback hits, 9 TFLs, and 2 forced fumbles. His pressure rate, 19.4, second in the league behind Danielle Hunter.
Yeah.
I mean, he's playing at an outrageous level. And to put that in perspective, the Eagles' highest pressure rate from an edge rusher is 11.1%. So it's like he's just pressuring at just an absurd level. He's playing like a defensive player of the year. He's just not going to win it because he hasn't played enough.
Yeah.
He's playing at that level right now.
Yeah. And again, Pickett did not show a great pocket sense, I thought, in that game. At times he did, but he's going to have to get rid of the ball and be aware of where Parsons is.
And it goes to the next one a little bit because Pickett's got to be able to protect the football. You mentioned the takeaways. The Cowboys are taking the ball away at an alarming rate if you're the Eagles. I think 12 takeaways in this 4-1 stretch.
Right. And yeah.
Some interceptions in there, some
lot
forced
of
fumbles.
And their corners just force more fumbles than you ever see from a secondary.
Yeah, if you had the old Quez Watkins play, you pop up, you better hold on to the football.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So
how many people you think got that Quez Watkins pop-up play reference just then? That's kind of an obscure play, isn't it?
No.
Okay.
But I appreciate that, 3 years after he played here, you're still going after Quez.
You were always the guy going after Quez,
what
right?
What a disaster. So much potential.
Yeah, it was a shame. 6-round pick showed so much.
Yeah.
Thought you found one.
Yeah. Didn't.
Saquon, I'm curious to see how the Cowboys play this. I think you can run on them, but it's tough to run on anyone when they're loading the box. And if Jalen Hurts doesn't play, they're going to load the box.
Yeah, and that's where you'd like to see the short passing game. And I'd like to see Saquon. For a while there, Saquon was getting more involved in the passing game. He hasn't the last couple of games, but I think he'd be a real weapon.
They tried on Sunday.
He's not a great receiver. I mean, obviously, we've seen that's a tough catch. I mean, that wheel route.
And it was behind. It was like a back shoulder.
Yeah. Almost had it. Obviously, the one against the Falcons was a much more manageable catch. But I'd like to see him involved in that way.
Yeah.
That would help.
And then the bonus one here, special teams. Eagles kickoffs were awful last week. They better be better this week.
So is coverage. Yeah. The whole package.
Yeah, the whole kickoff unit.
And, yeah, I talked to Braden Mann about Turpin, and
Kevontae Turpin's one of the best returners in the league.
He's just explosive. He said you just can't let him get his hands on the ball, and it's easier said than done. He made the point that if it's really cold, it's not going to be cold. It's going to be in the 60, apparently low 60s Sunday, high 50s. But the key with him is make him go horizontally to get the ball, so he's not catching it as he's moving forward. So, that's the goal.
Scary back there.
Easier said than done.
Yeah. Okay, that's all we have for matchups. We have some questions. Want to get to those?
I like the questions.
I know you do. It's eagleeye@nbcuni.com. The email address eagleeye@nbcuni.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you have that QR code. You can scan that and send us a question that way. First one is from Neil. Hey, Dave and Rube, I have a collector's Eagles football signed by Bill Bergey, RIP, 2 Brian Dawkins, 3 David Akers, 4 Corey Simon, and 5 Jamar Chaney. What's the oddest, funniest, or strangest piece of sports memorabilia you've ever seen?
think that Jamar Chaney brings the value that way down.
Jamar Chaney's coaching right now.
Is he?
Yeah.
Chaney State?
No, he's what is he? He's coaching at Baylor.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
He coached Danny Watkins. Strangest, I don't know. I'm not a memorabilia person. I do have a Donovan McNabb bobblehead on my desk at the NovaCare complex next to a Drexel Dragon bobblehead.
Jamar Chaney is inside linebackers coach at Baylor.
Are there inside linebackers any good?
Yeah. Jamar Chaney was a 7th round pick.
He was.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Well, you're picking on Quez. I can pick on Jamar Chaney. No, I'm not a memorabilia guy. I don't know.
I once saw Howie Roseman sign somebody's prosthetic leg.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was in Tampa.
I remember
probably 4 years ago or something. And the guy had his leg off and he's holding it up. And everyone started chanting, "Sign the leg, sign the leg." So Howie went over there to sign the guy's prosthetic leg.
Wonder how much that leg's worth.
I don't know. It costs you an arm and a leg. Our next question from Luke. Hey, Dave and Rube, this is Luke from Hurricane, West Virginia. Been listening to
the real place, Hurricane?
Yeah, it's spelled hurricane, but he says pronounced hurricane.
Interesting.
West Virginia. Is it a real place? You think he's writing us from a fictional place?
I'm guessing he is.
Okay. Been listening to the podcast since 2018. Never missed an episode. My question is, why haven't the Eagles made a change at tight end given Grant Calcaterra's absolute inability to block on run plays? The multitude of runs you spoke of where Barkley was hit in the backfield last game, Calcaterra was at the forefront, basically whiffing blocks or barely touching the defender like he was closing his eyes and just hoping for the best. I've tried to hold off on sending this question in for weeks, but he is stacking games with terrible film blocking, and it's absolutely cost the Eagles many yards and potential scores in the process. I know Goddard is out, but basically any option they can put in there, Stoll, even Uzoma, would be a better option given the current situation with Calcaterra. I don't want to dump on Grant. He's a solid pass catcher, but every week there's plays that are blown up in the backfield, and he's basically the sole reason as to why, and it looks like he's never getting any better. Thanks for all your hard work and keeping us Birds fans informed.
So Hurricane, West Virginia is next to Wheeler Ridge. They got a
it's real, right?
They got a Walgreens. They got a Holiday Inn Express. They got a Waves of Fun. I guess that's like a water park. There's a lot going on down there. They got a Dairy Queen.
I think every town in America might have a Dairy Queen.
You know what the largest city in the U.S. that doesn't have a McDonald's is?
No.
You don't know that? It's Montpelier, Vermont.
State capital?
It is. Yeah.
I used to know all the state capitals because that was information we had to know when we were in like 5th grade.
Yeah. How many do you think you could get now?
Oh, probably not many. For you, it was probably easier. You didn't have all the states. Yeah, but Calcaterra, he's not a good blocker. It was noticeable in that game. I agree with you. He's just a little light in the behind. Like he's just not built for it. I think he's trying.
Yeah.
I think he's like and at times like in space, he'll make a block.
Yeah.
Just the inline blocking is rough.
Yeah, and it hasn't gotten better. You're right. And I just think that they have so few weapons that are involved offensively that they don't want to get them off the field.
It's funny that they mentioned Stoll, who's no longer here, but for if Stoll had a game with no catches, you go, okay. When Calcaterra has a game with no catches, it's not helping.
Yeah, because he's not helping you blocking. Now he's not catching the ball. So, yeah.
I kind of agree with it. And Uzoma actually did block pretty well. He had a nice block on that long Saquon run.
They got Hurricane Fire Department, Hurricane Elementary School, City of Hurricane, Bridge Park Ball Fields, Pooch Resort. They got
what was that last one?
Pooch Resort, boarding, daycare, and grooming.
Gotcha.
And they got a Marathon gas station, a Hurricane. I think we should maybe want to do a podcast. They got a Walmart Supercenter. Wow, I wonder what that was like when they put that in. It's right off the 64, I-64 Hurricane. Walker Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. in Hurricane. There's a lot going on in Hurricane.
Okay.
What were we talking about? The tight ends. Yeah, they've tried. I mean, they've tried other guys, but and he does give you that dimension of, I mean, first play against the Steelers, 22 yards. He gives you that other tight ends don't give you. But hopefully Goddard's back after Sunday. He's eligible to return for the Giants game, which he might not need to, but he might need to. And they could sure use him.
Do you think if he's ready, they might get him some reps in that game?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's not cold going into the playoffs?
Yeah.
And that's another thing we haven't talked about. What if Jalen Hurts does not play in this game? They win. So
I don't need to see him.
You don't even want to get him a series?
No, he's played enough this year. I don't think it would be.
So you're basically going like 3 games because he came out in the first quarter. So
sure.
2 and 3 quarters.
I think the risk of getting him hurt against the Giants in a meaningless game isn't worth playing him.
But let me throw this at you. If you put him out there, he's not going out there with the second team offensive line in week 18. You're putting him out there with the starters.
Right.
You put Saquon out there. Do a little record hunting in week 18.
See what he needs. Yeah. I think
it could all come together like that, right?
We'll see how many yards he gets against the Cowboys. I mean, if he needs 40 yards, I would think Nick would let him try to go for it. If he needs
the problem is
90.
If Jalen doesn't play in this game, the running attack probably won't be as effective.
Right.
And then he might not be close enough to make a run at it.
Yeah. I think that's so secondary right now. So just got to win it. Try to get this thing over with Sunday.
Next question is from Jay. Hi, Dave and Rube. Love your podcast. Currently live in San Francisco and love listening to your guys' podcast.
Thanks, Jay.
As I currently work and live among many 49ers fans and even some Raiders fans. As a native Philadelphian, this podcast keeps me close to my roots. My question is, how does the NFL concussion protocol actually work? Do the Eagles team doctors have any say on whether a player is removed from the game? It seems like Jalen was ready to go back into the game, was pulled back into the locker room. I'm curious as to how that decision is ultimately made. So there's 2 separate things here. One is like during the game, and then there's a concussion protocol during the week.
Right.
So during the game, the NFL has done a better job of this. They have concussion spotters. They have a concussion spotter up in the booth, and then they have like the unaffiliated trauma doctor on the field. Those are the guys with the red hats. So they're always easy to spot. If you ever see like a camera shot of the blue tent and you see a guy with the red hat, it probably means that player is getting checked for a concussion.
Exactly. Yeah. And then once you get back to the NovaCare after he leaves once he leaves the game, obviously he's done. Then you see him take his helmet.
Important to note that the guys in the red hat do not work for the teams.
Right.
Like those are
independent.
They're unaffiliated, which is really important because you don't want any fudging of this stuff.
Sure.
Back in the day,
it
was not like that.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 years ago, Jalen Hurts is back in that game.
No question. I mean, gosh, Stuart Bradley. I mean, you just think of some of the stuff we saw. It's awful.
Like, honestly, I think he got too close to being allowed back in that game, but ultimately the process worked.
Yeah. Now, once he gets to the NovaCare on Monday, then the Eagles trainers and medical people are take over. But, the concussion protocol is, the NFL they're apprised of every single step of anyone in the protocol. Like, I'm sure that all the test results are forwarded to the NFL. I mean, they get all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So while the Eagles medical people are in charge of his rehab and his recovery, the NFL is apprised of all that stuff.
Yeah. There are 5 phases that you have to clear, like step by step. There's a system to it. And honestly, some of it is shrouded in mystery a little bit. We don't know every single thing, but like basically phase 1 is symptom limited activity, like very limited stuff. 2 is aerobic exercise. 3 is football specific exercise. 4 is non-contact. And then 5 is like full football. And then you get cleared by an independent neurologist.
Yeah. So there's certain criteria you have to meet to pass through each phase. And when you can get through that phase without any additional symptoms or without symptoms showing up, then you move on to the next phase. It's hard to clear in a week. Mm-hmm. It can't be done.
Next question from Sajan.
Sajan?
I think so.
Okay. How's that spelled?
Sajan.
Interesting.
Sejan?
Sejan. Yeah.
Sejan. I would go Sejan. I want to start off by saying I absolutely love the show and everything you guys do. The dynamic between you both is honestly hard to find on a podcast, and it's what makes the show so great. I was wondering what your guys' first impressions were of each other and how your relationship has evolved over the years. We did a little bit of this on our Get to Know Us show in the off season, but
fun.
I don't know. How long have we known each other? Like 10, 15 years?
We actually overlapped it at the Burlington County Times, right? But I don't think we
never like worked together.
Never worked together.
Yeah. And then, so we worked at the same newspaper together. And it was at the time where I was working a newspaper job, and I was also with then Comcast Sportsnet, now NBC Sports.
Yeah. I think when I was, I think I was doing my tryout, right? With Ben Seidman out on the patio.
Yeah. You were doing like your interview, and I saw you, and you were like, I wasn't here.
Yeah, that was funny. It was this big secret. All of a sudden, there's Dave. But yeah, I don't know. I think the relationship's gotten worse progressively throughout the years.
It's deteriorated.
It really has.
Yeah, you don't have to be best friends. You guys will work together. Right? We talked about it with Jalen and AJ through this.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're good.
Yeah.
Patrick, dear Dave and Rube, I started watching after the Eagles Super Bowl loss and haven't missed a podcast since. Hopefully we can make another run back to the Super Bowl. I've sent a couple of emails before. Hopefully this one catches your eye, but I wanted to ask you something that's been nagging me all season. The Eagles' 2-minute defense under Vic Fangio. There have been some alarming moments, like the Kirk Cousins marching down the field in week 2, Jaden Daniels leading the Commanders for a game winner in week 16, and the near disasters against Trevor Lawrence and Bryce Young. It feels like, despite our overall defensive talent, we're struggling to close out games when it matters most. Do you think this comes down to Fangio's scheme, execution issues, or maybe a lack of the right personnel for these situations? And more importantly, is this something that we can realistically clean up before the playoffs, or is it going to be an Achilles heel for the team?
That's a really interesting question. I think it's a great point. It has popped up several times, a lot, too many times. I don't know the answer other than it's a very young defense and it's a new defense. There's like 7 new starters, a lot of guys who haven't even started in the NFL before. And they're just in positions that they're not used to. That's not an excuse, but I think that might have something to do with it.
I think that's some of it. I also think there's like schematically, they're worried about big plays in those moments. And I think they're probably giving up a little too much underneath at times. And it's allowing teams to move the sticks on them.
Yeah, could be.
And maybe some of it's coincidental too. Like you're getting big plays at other moments and you're not getting them. Now, to be fair, we've talked about it already. Against the Commanders, like we thought they made the game-winning play, and then they had to do it again, and that's where they failed.
Yeah.
So if I don't know if this is even a narrative, if that game ends with Devontae Smith catches that ball and the defense doesn't go back on the field, we're probably talking about the Eagles defense down the stretch.
Right.
Did its job. They got a big takeaway in a key moment.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, same way with the Falcons game that,
Sure. Yeah.
I don't want to beat up on Saquon, but if he catches that ball, nobody's talking about that last Falcons touchdown.
No, it doesn't excuse the defense.
Right.
But.
And I also think it's hard in some of those situations to go back out there. You think the game's over.
Exactly. Yeah. And it shouldn't. It's not an excuse, but I like human nature is that.
Yeah.
Last question. I actually want to get to this one because this is the last question I have in front of me. So I don't think we've ever gotten through all of them that I have in front of me. This is from Barry. Greetings.
I hope he asked about Hurricane.
From not so sunny Seattle. While disappointed at last week's performance, I'm fully optimistic we're going to tear through the next few weeks, looking positive toward the playoffs. Anyway, I'm writing to say thank you for the awesome bonding moments you've assisted in with my daughter recently. She heard Rube describe the Richard Tea Time story a few weeks back, and we both got a huge kick out of it. Now, when we're doing things that require some grit, one will say Richard T to our laughter and otherwise general confusion. Thanks for the insight, banter, and inside jokes. Love you guys, and go Birds. I love that one. That's great.
That's great knowing there's somewhere out in Washington.
Richard T time.
A dad and his daughter when things are tough. Hey, it's Richard T time.
Prediction time. I don't expect you to have one this week because there's a lot of uncertainty as we're recording this.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking if Jalen plays, I'm picking the Eagles. If he doesn't play, I'm picking the Cowboys.
Okay.
It's that simple. I'll have one of each written, and as soon as you know who the quarterback is, I'll send it to you. But I don't have a great feeling about this game if Pickett starts, and maybe that's unfair to him. But also, look, there's questions about the defense a little bit coming off the way that game ended. I don't think that's representative of what we'll see from them. But Dallas certainly has some weapons, and they've been, scoring a lot of points, and it's not an easy game. Man, you're right. After that 34-6, you're looking at the end of the schedule saying, oh, they finished with the Cowboys and the Giants. That's 2 dubs. Maybe it will be, but this one certainly, the Giants one might look easier than it did.
Yeah.
But and it's sure nice to have that in your back pocket.
The Giants are going to be actively trying to lose in week 18.
No, if the Eagles, I would think if the Eagles can clinch, they'll do everything they can to get the Giants a win in the last game.
Yeah.
So they don't get Shador, maybe. I don't know.
It'd be very funny to see 2 teams trying to lose a game in week 18.
Yeah.
Although the Giants players will probably want to win.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to pick the Eagles either way. I think it'll be a lot closer if Jalen doesn't play. But I think even with Kenny Pickett, they have enough talent to win this game.
Could be.
Yeah. All right. That's it for the Eagle Eye Podcast. If you enjoy the pod, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. We'll be back with you on Sunday after the game. 1:00 game, by the way. Don't forget that. Any final words, Rube?
No, looking forward to another 1:00 game.
All right. This has been the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.